Okay, so you've brought us this list, a really powerful collection of significant aviation disasters.
Indeed.
And what we want to do, I think, in this deep dive is not just recount the events, but really pull out the key learnings, right?
Exactly. The moments that fundamentally changed things, changed how we fly.
Yeah, the aim is to give you, our listener, a clear sense of that lasting impact, those insights that, make flying so much safer today.
And it's important to remember what significant means here. It's not just the tragic loss of life, though that's obviously paramount.
Right.
The source material points out we also look at financial costs, historical impact.
And crucially, the safety reforms, the things that directly affect you when you travel.
Precisely. Commercial and sometimes military aviation reforms, too.
Okay, let's start with one that's, well, impossible to forget. September 11th, 2001.
Still the deadliest aerial disaster and the deadliest terrorist attack. 2,977 lives lost. It's staggering.
So what was the biggest shift for aviation that you still feel today because of 9/11?
Well, the security transformation was incredibly fast and profound. Think about the TSA, the Transportation Security Administration.
Created just months later, right? November 2001.
Yeah, a huge step.
Yeah.
It federalized airport screening, brought in a consistent national standard.
Replacing that patchwork of private contractors?
Exactly, something you probably just expect now when you go to the airport.
And that legacy is everywhere at the airport, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
You've got the reinforced cockpit doors,
A direct response.
the 100% checked baggage screening for explosives, which is routine now,
Mm-hmm.
and then the things in your carry-on like no sharp objects, the limits on liquids.
Yep, the liquid ban came a bit later after another plot, but the principle was established.
Plus more air marshals, pilots trained to resist hijackers. It's a whole suite of changes.
And it's fascinating how embedded these are now. Taking off your shoes, the body scanners.
You just do it.
Right. But they're not random. They're direct results of the vulnerabilities exposed that day.
Mm,
It really shows how one event can just reshape an entire industry.
totally. And the effects went way beyond security lines, didn't they?
Oh, hugely. The economic fallout was immense. Air travel demand just plummeted.
Airlines went bankrupt.
Several major ones, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the massive geopolitical shifts that are still playing out.
But within aviation itself, it really kicked off this era of intense counterterrorism focus, international cooperation on security, all aimed at keeping you safe.
Absolutely. Now, let's shift gears. From terrorism to the deadliest accident in aviation history, Tenerife, 1977.
Two Boeing 747s colliding on a runway, 583 deaths. It's almost impossible to picture.
Two jumbos on the ground in fog.
Yeah, the source material mentions the dense fog, but also crucially miscommunication. What exactly went wrong?
It was a terrible chain of events, really. The KLM 747 started its takeoff roll without explicit clearance from ATC.
Why?
Well, a combination of factors, some ambiguous radio calls, pressure from delays. The KLM captain seems to have misinterpreted a clearance limit as clearance for takeoff.
While the Pan Am 747 was still on the same runway, taxiing in that thick fog.
Exactly. You could see how easily misunderstandings could happen with the protocols back then.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because it wasn't just about that moment, was it? It exposed bigger system weaknesses.
Totally. It led to fundamental changes in how pilots and controllers talk to each other.
Changes you hear today.
Precisely. Tenerife was a massive turning point. The biggest outcome, standardized ATC phraseology worldwide.
Like using very specific terms.
Yes. For example, the exact phrase, cleared for takeoff. That phrase, and only that phrase, means you are authorized to take off. No ambiguity.
Removes any chance of mishearing takeoff and other instructions.
Exactly. That level of precision is just vital in that environment.
Makes total sense. That clarity is paramount. And Tenerife also spurred something called crew resource management, CRM. What's that about?
CRM is basically a cornerstone of modern flight safety. It's training that teaches the entire crew pilots, flight attendants, how to communicate and work together effectively.
So not just the captain calling all the shots.
Right. It empowers everyone to speak up if they see something unsafe. It encourages assertiveness, double-checking challenging decisions respectfully if safety might be compromised.
So it moves away from that strict hierarchy.
Towards a culture of shared awareness and responsibility in the cockpit, making sure everyone's voice can be heard for safety.
A really powerful legacy from such a tragedy. Safer skies for you, the passenger.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's jump forward now. A more recent crisis. The Boeing 737 MX crashes.
2018 and 2019. Lion Air 610, Ethiopian Airlines 302, 346 people lost.
And deeply concerning because it was a brand new aircraft type.
Right. And the cause was eventually tracked down to that software system, MCS. Can you break that down for us?
Yeah, the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, MCS, both crashes shared this common root cause, a single faulty sensor.
An angle of attack sensor.
Correct. It measures the wing's angle against the airflow. This faulty sensor fed bad data to MCS.
And MCS is designed to push the nose down automatically to prevent a stall.
Yes. But based on that wrong data, it kept pushing the nose down aggressively and repeatedly.
And the pilots couldn't override it.
They fought it, but ultimately, tragically, they couldn't regain control in either case.
The fallout was just unprecedented, wasn't it? Grounding the entire global fleet.
For nearly 2 years, yeah, 20 months. I don't think we'd ever seen anything like it on that scale. It impacted so many travelers like you.
Huge financial hit for Boeing, too.
Massive. Over $20 billion, estimates say. But more importantly, it triggered intense scrutiny of how planes get certified in the first place.
What came out of that scrutiny?
Investigations showed Boeing hadn't been fully transparent about MCS, its power, and pilots weren't adequately trained on it. The crucial insight: you can't rush innovation at the expense of safety and transparency.
Which raises that big question for anyone who flies. How do you balance innovation and efficiency with absolute safety? It seems like maybe that balance slipped with the MAX initially.
That's the core issue. The crashes directly led to regulatory reforms. In the U.S., the Aircraft Certification, Safety, and Accountability Act of 2020.
What does that do?
It aims to reform FAA certification, requires manufacturers to be upfront about critical flight control changes, increases FAA oversight. Yeah. It's all about ensuring the plane you fly on is rigorously vetted.
And the MAX is flying again now, but only after major changes were made.
Correct. Big software updates for MCS. Now it takes data from 2 sensors, not just 1.
That seems crucial.
It is. And significantly enhanced pilot training, specifically on MCS. The whole saga is a stark reminder. Safety has to come first. Always. Ahead of cost, ahead of speed.
Absolutely. Okay, let's rewind a bit again to another major event, but this time pre-9/11 terrorism. Pan Am Flight 103, Lockerbie, 1988.
A terrible bombing. 270 fatalities. For many, it was a chilling precursor, showing the vulnerability of air travel to terrorism.
Yeah, I remember that vividly. What was the cause there?
A bomb, concealed inside a radio cassette player in an unaccompanied suitcase loaded into the forward cargo hold.
Unaccompanied, so the person who checked the bag wasn't on the flight.
Exactly. That was a key vulnerability. The investigation implicated Libyan intelligence agents, leading to huge international fallout. But for you as a traveler, the big legacy is in security changes.
What specifically changed after Lockerbie that we'd recognize today?
It really forced a complete overhaul of baggage screening. The concept of positive passenger bag match, or PPBM, became critical.
Meaning the bag doesn't fly unless you do.
Precisely. Unaccompanied bags were either banned or subjected to incredibly stringent screening. That idea of a bag traveling alone became a huge red flag.
Something we probably take for granted now, but it came directly from Lockerbie.
It did. Plus, X-ray standards were raised, technology for explosive detection was fast-tracked.
And legislation followed too.
Yes, the Aviation Security Improvement Act of 1990 in the U.S. mandated a whole raft of enhancements. Better intelligence sharing, federal security managers at airports, stricter training for security staff. Lockerbie really built the foundations for the multi-layered security you see today.
Okay, let's shift to a different kind of disaster. Japan Airlines Flight 123, 1985. The deadliest single plane crash ever. 520 lives lost.
The scale is just horrifying. And the cause was, well, it wasn't terrorism, it wasn't weather, it was maintenance.
A faulty repair.
Yes, an improper repair to the rear pressure bulkhead years earlier, back in 1978. After a tail strike.
What was wrong with the repair?
It was done by Boeing technicians, actually. But instead of using 2 rows of rivets as specified, they used only 1 on a reinforcing plate. A seemingly small error.
With utterly catastrophic results down the line, makes you think about the precision needed in maintenance.
Absolutely. Over thousands of flight cycles, about 12,000 pressurization cycles, that faulty repair weakened. Then it failed catastrophically in flight.
Explosive decompression.
Yes. It blew off the vertical stabilizer, severed all the hydraulic lines. The pilots had virtually no flight controls left.
That they fought to control it.
Incredibly, for over 30 minutes, using just engine thrust. But ultimately, they couldn't prevent the crash.
The impact on maintenance standards must have been profound for the planes you fly on today.
Huge. JAL-123 put a massive spotlight on the critical importance of following maintenance procedures to the letter.
Stricter oversight.
Much stricter oversight of major repairs by manufacturers and regulators. Enhanced quality control, more rigorous inspections.
And lessons for emergency response, too.
Yes, the initial response in Japan was criticized as delayed. JAL itself created a safety promotion center to embed the lessons learned. Globally, it reinforced rigorous maintenance and influenced aircraft design for more redundancy in control systems, all for the integrity of the aircraft you're in.
Chilling. A single bad repair, years before. Okay, let's go back even further. 1956, the Grand Canyon mid-air collision.
128 fatalities, lower than some others, but it's the worst U.S. commercial crash at the time and a major catalyst for modern air traffic control, which you rely on every single flight.
It's strange, though, two planes colliding in apparently clear weather over the Grand Canyon. How did that happen?
Well, ATC in the 50s was nothing like today. Both planes, a United DC-7 and a TWA Constellation, were flying under VFR visual flight rules.
Meaning see and avoid.
Essentially, yes. They were at 21,000 feet, maneuvering to give passengers a view and avoid clouds in airspace with very limited radar coverage back then.
And airspace control was fragmented.
Right. Split between civil and military authorities. It was complex, potentially confusing.
So the system just wasn't equipped for the growing amount of air traffic? A dangerous situation for anyone flying then.
Exactly that. The Grand Canyon collision starkly revealed how inadequate the ATC system was. Public outcry was huge.
Which led to action.
Yes, Congress acted. The result was the Federal Aviation Act of 1958. It created the Federal Aviation Agency, the FAA.
Taking over from the old CAA.
Right, and giving the FAA broad authority over all U.S. airspace, civil and military, with a mandate to modernize ATC, the system you depend on today.
And that meant investment in radar controllers.
Big investments. Radar nationwide, navigation aids, hiring and training thousands of controllers, new rules for airways, altitude separation. The modern, coordinated ATC system really grew directly out of that Grand Canyon tragedy.
Amazing how one event could spur such a fundamental change. Now, another mid-air collision, the deadliest ever. Charkhi, Dadri, India, 1996.
349 fatalities. Just horrific. A Saudi Arabian 747 and a Kazakhstan Airlines Il-76 cargo plane collided head-on near New Delhi.
What caused that one?
The investigation found the primary cause was a Kazakh crew descending below their assigned altitude. They weren't supposed to be that low.
And communication issues again.
A major contributing factor, tragically. Poor English proficiency on the Kazakh flight deck made communication with ATC difficult and ultimately contributed to the confusion. It really underscores how vital, clear, standard communication is.
And India's response was significant, affecting safety features you might find on planes now.
Very significant. India mandated that all aircraft flying in its airspace must be equipped with ACS, Airborne Collision Avoidance System. You probably know it as TCS.
TCAS, right. That was quite groundbreaking then.
It really was, setting a global precedent for requiring this technology. It's like an electronic safety net in the sky.
How does TCS work, basically?
It's an onboard system. It actively scans for other nearby aircraft that also have transponders. If it detects a potential collision risk, it gives pilots visual and audio alerts.
Telling them to climb or descend?
Exactly. Coordinated resolution advisories. It's an independent backup to ATC.
So Charkhi Dadri really pushed TCF forward globally, made flying safer for you.
Absolutely. Its international adoption accelerated dramatically after that crash. With the years, most large airliners had TCAS too, and it also hammered home the importance of English as the standard aviation language. Stricter enforcement of proficiency standards for pilots and controllers internationally, all to prevent those fatal misunderstandings.
Okay, let's look at Turkish Airlines Flight 981. Crashed near Paris in 1974, 346 dead, the deadliest crash at that time.
Yes, the DC-10. And the cause was very specific, leading to design changes you benefit from on wide-body jets today.
What was the specific cause?
A design flaw in the rear cargo door latch. The door blew out after takeoff.
Leading to explosive decompression.
Yes, in the cargo hold. But the catastrophic part was the pressure difference caused the cabin floor above the hold to collapse.
Severing control cables running through the floor.
Exactly. Critical cables for the rudder and elevators. The crew lost control completely.
And chillingly, this wasn't the first time that door design had caused problems, was it?
No, that's the really tragic part. A nearly identical incident happened to an American Airlines DC-10 in 1972 over Windsor, Ontario. The pilots managed to land safely that time, luckily.
But the fixes weren't sufficient.
Apparently not universally applied or robust enough. The loss of Flight 981 made it brutally clear a permanent fix was non-negotiable.
So a known flaw not fully fixed leads to disaster. Then the changes happen.
Sadly, yes. It forced an immediate, industry-wide redesign and retrofit of the cargo door latches on all DC-10s and similar designs, mandated safeguards like vents, locking pins to prevent pressurization if not fully locked.
And stronger floors, too.
Yes, the FAA mandated stricter floor strength and venting standards to prevent that kind of control cable severance from decompression. These lessons were built into future aircraft designs, enhancing safety for you.
Right, now to something more recent and deeply mysterious. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, 2014.
MH370, 239 people presumed lost. Still one of aviation's biggest unanswered questions. A modern Boeing 777 vanishing over the Indian Ocean.
And despite that massive search,
The main wreckage was never found. It starkly revealed gaps in our ability to track flights in real time, especially over remote oceanic areas, far from radar. The uncertainty caused terrible anguish for the families and really spurred global action for the peace of mind of travelers like you.
what kind of action? What changed to prevent this kind of vanishing act again?
The big response came via ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization. They developed Gadis, the Global Aeronautical Distress and Safety System.
What does GAT involve?
It mandates more frequent automated position reports from airliners. Normally every 15 minutes, but down to every minute if the plane detects it's in distress.
Using satellite tracking.
Yes, satellite-based tracking became much more central, plus updated standards for things like emergency locator transmitters and the underwater pingers on black boxes, longer battery life, for instance. The goal is to ensure we don't lose a plane like that again, providing more certainty for you and everyone.
Okay, one last one. Korean Airlines Flight 0007 shot down in 1983.
KOAL 007. Near Sakhalin Island, Cold War tensions running high, 269 lives lost.
What happened there?
A Soviet fighter jet shot down the civilian Boeing 747. It had strayed significantly off course deep into Soviet airspace. The Soviets claimed they mistook it for a U.S. spy plane, a terrible tragedy born from navigation error and Cold War paranoia.
And the impact, maybe surprisingly, had a huge positive outcome for civilian tech that you use constantly, not just when flying.
Absolutely. The key decision came from U.S. President Reagan. In direct response to the shootdown, he ordered that the military's global positioning system, GPS, be made freely available for civilian use worldwide.
Because better navigation might have prevented KAL 007 straying off course.
That was the reasoning. GPS was military tech then. Making it public revolutionized civilian navigation, not just in aviation, but everywhere. It's made flying incredibly precise and reduced the risk of those kinds of gross navigational errors happening to flights carrying you.
And it also led to changes in military procedures.
Yes, improved protocols for intercepting unidentified aircraft, better coordination with civilian ATC to avoid tragic misidentifications.
So even a Cold War tragedy led to tech that enhances your safety today.
It's a common thread, isn't it? Each of these terrible events, these 10 disasters, they were all catalysts.
For real change.
Significant improvements, new tech like better cargo doors, TCAS, GPS, but also fundamental shifts in regulations, security, ATC, pilot training like CRM. The whole system learned and adapted, making things safer for you.
And you really see that in today's safety record. Modern air travel is incredibly safe, statistically.
It is. And that safety record is built directly on the lessons learned, often at great cost, from these very events. They weren't just isolated incidents. They shaped the robust safety culture we rely on.
So maybe a final thought for our listener. Which of these changes do you think has impacted your travel experience the most?
Is it the security you see, stemming from 9/11 and Lockerbie? Or maybe the invisible tech, like TCAS from Charkhi Dadri, or the GPS navigation from KAL-07 working behind the scenes?
It's worth considering how these tragedies have woven themselves into the very fabric of flying today.
Absolutely. And if any of these stories particularly struck you, we definitely encourage you to dig deeper. It really shows how even the worst moments can ultimately drive vital improvements that benefit all of us.